Boom! Let's do this. Man, I wanted to make this video for over a year now, but I never got around to doing it because I didn't want to learn that one song. But now... but now... I can do this. But now it's time for another RC Andy tutorial. Yeah. Okay, let's do this. So did you ever think that 5 tracks of the RC-505 are just not enough? If so, don't worry, because today I'm gonna teach you how you can get over this limitation. But first, let's start with why would you want to do that? Isn't 5 tracks enough? And in case this is not clear, if I'm talking about a track, I mean one of those. There are 5 individual tracks where you can record and overdub, and then you can individually stop them and stuff. Just so we're on the same page. Right, but like 5 tracks is actually quite a lot for a loop station. Like if you compare it to the RC-202, it only has 2 tracks. The RC-300 only has 3 tracks. The RC-1 and the RC-3 only have 1. And that's already a looper. I mean, you can already do a lot with just 1 track. So having 5 is like pretty sweet of the RC-505. But still, it might just not be enough. I mean, there were several occasions where I was just like, man, I wish it had another track because I want to record something else, but all my tracks are already taken. So if 1 track is enough to loop, why do you need 5? Well, it's about that individually being able to stop and start tracks. That is very helpful. You just get a better dynamic if you do that. And you might want to be able to separate your rhythm from percussion, from bass line, from chords, from melody. And beatboxers usually also distribute their rhythm section over several tracks, having only the hi-hats on one, the snares on another, and the kicks on the third. So you run out of tracks pretty quickly. For instance, I could put the hi-hat on one track, being like, and then the snare, another one. And there we see another reason why you want to separate into several tracks. They might have a different length. Here I only have an 8th note, whereas here I have a full measure. And if you do that, then you run out of tracks pretty quickly. Because with only 2 elements yet, and there's nothing else of the song yet. Now there is one trick that gives you 3 tracks more or less, and that is the undo-redo function. Basically, you can overdub onto one of the tracks, and the last thing you overdub you can always undo and then redo, which is almost as good as starting and stopping another track. So for instance, if at my snares here, I could add the kick drum on that, being like... And then I can undo this if I want to remove the kick again, just leaving me with the snare, and I can bring it back in. Problem with that is that, of course, I cannot play the kick individually. I always have to play the snare if I want to play the kick, because they're on that track. If I had it in a separate track, I could, you know, control it separately, but here I always have to have the snare on if I also want to hear the kick. Another disadvantage, and in my opinion that's the bigger problem with this strategy, is that you cannot record anything on top of that, because that of course then removes your ability. What? Hold on a second. So as I was saying, if you now record anything on top of that, then you lose the ability to undo it. But that's still fine. My problem is only that I cannot save it with the undo. If I save a track and then I load it again, then it will not let me undo this thing again. I can perform it like that, yes, but I can never save it, load it, and then perform it again, because the undo settings are not saved. And that's why I personally do not like to work with that undo so much. But there are a lot of people who use it a lot. So this feature is well known. I don't need to explain it in more detail. I think you can figure this out. So it kind of gives you an additional track, but not really. And unfortunately, this neat little trick doesn't really help us if we already have 5 tracks recorded and then we kind of want to change stuff up, you know, either for an upcoming drop. I mean, you can do a lot with the effects that work on the stuff you already recorded, but sometimes you want to change it up some more. I mean, this is the main difference between a song and a loop. A loop just has constantly the same stuff going on, and in a song, you have segments between which stuff changes. Like the chord progression might change, the overall feel of the song might change, the rhythm might change. You know, typical example, a bridge. In any popular song, you'll find some sort of bridge where they change stuff up, where there's suddenly a rap part, where you just make it more interesting because after, you know, 2.5 minutes of your song, people start to get bored with it. And so you need to change it up. You need to change stuff to make it a song and not just a repetitive loop. But since I have all my 5 tracks already recorded on, how do I do it? How do I get access to more tracks? Now let me show you the easiest way to get access to more tracks. And now, you just get yourself another loop station. Man, I waited to open this package for like several months just to make this joke in this very video. I'm an idiot. I have another loop station. Anyhow, so basically you just buy a second loop station, put it here, and voila, you have 10 tracks instead of 5. Admittedly, this might be cheating. The advantage is you actually have 10 full tracks that you can use simultaneously. The disadvantage is that you need to buy another loop station. Not everybody might want to afford that. And also it adds a little bit of complexity to your setup, and you always need to carry 2 loop stations everywhere. And so this is not the ideal solution either. It's of course one solution, but then if 10 tracks are not enough, you need to buy yet another one. So we see where this is going. I mean, there are a lot of performers who have 2 RC-505 in their setup for their live performances, and it makes sense, but not just to increase the number of tracks. There are better reasons why you would want 2 loop stations, but that's a topic for another video, as CGP Grey likes to say. Yeah, so a second loop station might not be the ideal solution for you, but lucky you, I have a better strategy on how to increase the number of tracks you have available to you. I mean, you know, having 10 actual, you know, hardware tracks that you can play with might be pretty cool, but then you rarely need that many tracks. You rarely want to control 10 tracks individually. With 10 tracks, I wouldn't even remember where I put what. On a producer level, of course, you want to have several tracks, even more than 10, but not on a live performance kind of setup. I would argue that, you know, having the 5 simultaneously is almost enough, but didn't I argue exactly against that a few seconds ago? Here's the thing. As I said in the beginning, in your track, you usually have, you know, a rhythm part, your percussion, your bass line, your chords, etc. And the thing you usually want to be able to do is to add or subtract stuff. So let's say you want to change your rhythm track. If we had 10 tracks, then we could make a separate rhythm track, and we always stop that one and start the other one. But what we can also do is just replace that one with the other one. Because for a different part of the song, we just want to replace the rhythm track, or we want to replace the bass line, or we want to replace the chords. So, we're getting there, don't worry. Let's talk about memory. The RC-505 has 99 possibilities to store your tracks. You can see that here. Let's make it bigger. This is number 1. That's the first of 99. You can go back here. You see 99 is the maximum. Back here I have my presets. So there are 99 storage spaces where you can, you know, store your tracks to. I don't like how they're called memory. I prefer to call them memory slots. So whenever I'm talking about a slot, then this is what I'm referring to. This is slot number 1, slot number 2, and so on. So we'll have the memory slots, just so we are clear on my terms and conditions and definitions, and you know what I mean. Because it gets very confusing if you call that track 1 and that track 2, because, you know, those are the tracks. And we don't want to confuse things, and memory could be the memory settings. So let's refer to those as slots. What does a memory slot actually do? What does it store? That's an important question to answer first. Obviously, it stores what I recorded. So, you know, if I were to record a simple beat like, say, now that we recorded that, we might want to save it. We do that by pressing right and right again. You definitely saw me hammer the right button because I want to save whatever I recorded. But now we have to have the discussion of what is actually saved. Because the memory slot saves more than you might think. Of course it saves everything you have recorded on the tracks. It does not save the last undo though, so you will not be able to undo stuff after you... We talked about that. It also saves all of the settings in your memory settings. So if you change something here, this will be saved. It also saves everything in your rhythm settings, even whether or not you have the rhythm turned on. So if I now save it, I turn it off, and I come back to it, you basically load a memory slot by going to that very slot. It now has the rhythm turned on. So that's saved. It also saves all of the track and input effect settings, which effect you have where, and also which of the effects are active. So let's say I have a chorus on B and I have it active, and I write this to my memory slot. Then when I come back to it, boom, chorus is active. This is very important for later, remember that. Also, and this is another very important thing because you don't want to get that wrong, if you change your memory slot and you have not saved what you were doing, it will not automatically save it. It will just be discarded. If I record some interesting stuff here and then I go away accidentally and I come back, it's not here anymore. My interesting stuff is gone. And this killed some of my songs already. No! Not cool. Especially because it's the same knob that is used for changing a value, and then if you have something selected, and then suddenly this disappears, and you just want to and then it's gone. Be careful about that. Be careful when you change memory slots with that thing, because most of the time you don't even want to change memory slots, but just because it's that knob, you accidentally do it. We will get to that later, but if it's playing, you have a certain amount of time until it actually changes there, and if you're quick enough, you can press exit and it won't change there. We'll get to that in a second though. One thing after the other. Each memory slot, by the way, also has a name that you can change here. And yeah, then you just save it. That's how you save tracks. Okay, so far so good. I think now is the time where I want to record a little bit more, just so we have something to work with. As I usually go, rhythm, then a bass line with guitar to bass. Yeah. And then I usually go with, like, you know, something. I wanna Okay, I recorded something. Now I want to save that here. Okay, cool. Now we saved it to memory slot 1. But look at what we can do now. We can also save it to another memory slot by hitting the right button once and then turning this knob to go to a different memory slot, like the slot 2, and then we hit right. And then we have stored it to memory slot 2. Now, on both 1 and 2, there is the same thing now. So we can play that. And then we can change to the other memory slot, like so. And there is no audible change for the user. Like, somebody listening to you will not have realized anything, right? You can go back to the 2. Same thing, very same thing. Nothing changed. And as you already saw, you can change the memory slot during you play the song. And it also automatically does it at the end of your loop. So far, so good. We didn't really win anything yet. Now, we can change the stuff. Add something like... Don't forget to save. And then we can change. And it's gone. Same as with undo, just that we're now on a different track again. And bring it back now. And remove it. Yeah, and you see how this can be helpful. Because we're still working only with 3 tracks, but we were able to add something on here. Let's explore this idea a little bit more, because we might want to add something else. And now observe what happens if I change tracks. And we change to 1. And now we change back to 2. This track is not playing anymore. Why is that? Because only the tracks that are running will be running when you change the slot. So for instance, if I remove the bass and I go to 1, the bass is not playing. So you see that this is done on purpose. This is an actual feature of the RC-505. The designers thought about this when they built the looper. They want you to use it, but I don't see any people using it, so that's why I'm making this video to, you know, spread the knowledge and stuff. What if we want this to also always start playing now though? Simple. We just go to track 1 and here we create an empty track. Let's do it with 1 measure. Boom. And then we can play. And change to 2. And we'll be playing. Yeah. Isn't that cool? That's cool. I mean, I find that particularly cool. And because we learned earlier that we can also save the effects that are active, we can say that if we come here, we want to have the chorus active. So here we sing the verse, we sing in a normal voice, and here have the chorus, yeah, with the chorus effect, yeah, with the chorus effect, and back to my normal voice, and I do not have to press the button, I just move the memory slot, yeah. Don't have to push the button, can just be like boom, and it's here, and boom, and it's gone. It's here, it's gone, it's here, it's gone. because it automatically loads that when I go to the other memory slot. Powerful. This is powerful stuff. You can do a lot of stuff with that. And it kind of excites me. I like it. I mean, you have to figure out for yourself how you want to use it. I'm just giving you the knowledge such that you can experiment with it. Since the tempo is also one thing that is stored, you can, you know, just turn that up a little. Just just a little bit, that the observer doesn't really realize, but kind of feels it. You know, so if we save that with the new tempo now, and then we do the same thing, we're just chilling in the verse here. It feels smooth, and then we go to the chorus where suddenly it's quicker, but you don't really hear it. You hear it, but you don't actively understand that it's faster now. You just feel that it's more energy in the chorus. Just nice energy in the chorus, and then smooth and chill. And back with a little bit more speed. Yeah. There are so many things that you can do with this. Just experiment a little bit. Just play with it. But before I let you go on your journey to explore the memory slots, there's one more thing that we need to discuss first. And that is, when does it change memory slot while I'm playing a song? Because what we do not want to have happen is something like this, where we have a song with like 2 measures, and then after the first, it changes. The new memory slot that you go to will always start at measure 1, so it will always start here. So we don't want to have this end here. We always want it to come to the end, especially if we have the same chord progression. We always want that 4 chords to go through until we then change. We don't want to have it change, because then it repeats the first 2 and then it's offset. We don't like that. I mean, not usually. You might want to do that on purpose, like I did in the Stolen Dance cover, because I repeated the last measure, and then after that I changed to 1. Stoned in paradise, shouldn't talk about it. I shouldn't talk about it. I shouldn't talk about it. I shouldn't talk about it. And did you see how I smashed the play button of track 3 to also start it during that transition? Anyway, the point is, you need to be aware of when the slot changes, when the memory changes. So let's talk about that. If you paid attention so far, then you saw if I change, you see it blinking, you see it standing there, and then it changes. Basically, while it's blinking, you still have the chance to cancel. It's blinking, exit, I don't want to change. It's good to be quick and the exit if you haven't saved it yet. Because once it's standing there and not blinking anymore, you can't exit it and it will change. We see that it changes on the 4th beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. On the 4th beat, it will become the state where you can't change it anymore. So at the very 4th beat, it decides whether or not it's gonna change memory now. It doesn't matter how early before the 4th beat I do it. If at the 1st beat it is somewhere at a different memory slot, it will decide to go to that memory slot. So, for instance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Here I can select, and then at 4 it says, okay, you went to 17 now. To make this even clearer, let's turn this down all the way to the very slowest possible tempo. So we have like 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3,
4. 1, 2,
Okay.
3.
Super slow.
4,
If I turn to the
4,
2,
1, 2.
it stays there
3,
blinking until it's at the 4. Then it takes it as its next destination. That also means I can already select it at the 4. 4. Here, I select it. It doesn't change. It doesn't change. It doesn't change. It doesn't change until it gets to the 4, locks it in, and changes. So that is true for one measure, right? This has one measure. However, it also depends where the end of the loop is, because it will only do that at the 4th beat of the last measure of the loop. And how long the loop is depends on your loop length. Can be found in the memory settings under loop length. Here it is 1. What about if we change it to 2? Okay, so now my loop length is 2. What happens now? I play
1,
and I turn to the 2.
3.
We reach the 4, but this is just the first measure of a 2-measure loop. Now we're at the last one, and bam. Makes sense? Same thing, of course, if I were to set this to 4, then we would basically have, you know,
3,
forever
4,
time until it actually changes, because it needs to get to the end of the loop before it actually changes. This is just measure 3 out of 4, and we have all the time to exit it. We can still exit it here. Could
3.
not anymore once we get to the 4, but now we can't anymore. You got this now? Understandable? Everything clear? Good. Because this is important to keep in your head if you actually want to use this strategy of extending your tracks. And, you know, of course, this is not, you know, perfect in the sense of you can extend your tracks freely and however you want. You are still limited to 5 tracks. So I might have lied to you in the beginning if I said that you can get more. You're limited to 5 tracks. That's just the RC-505. I'm sorry about that. Get a second one. But it certainly opens up possibilities if you want to change it up a little. And because if you write it to somewhere else, then it takes what you have now, and once you store it to the next memory slot, you can delete what you're working with and put in the new stuff. That's how I did it at the cover as well. And I want you. So check out the cover to learn a little bit how I did it. I mean, there's some problems with this approach. Did I not record the last parts? Doesn't matter. I don't want to do it again. Basically, I was just saying there is a problem if you don't change while the song is playing, because then it doesn't have the 4th beat to load. But if you just quickly change and then start, start, then it might take a little bit of time for it to load your tracks, and that might, you know, ruin your rhythm. So just so you're aware of that. But I think we discussed this enough. Just experiment with the memory slots. It's a really cool concept, not only for getting more tracks within one song, but also just in general to save your tracks, save your songs. And if you're doing like a continuous loop where you have several elements, always just, you know, save it to a slot such that you can come back to it later to change it up a little. If I were to add a bridge here now, then I could be like, I write this to memory 4, and then everything I have here is on memory 4. And I might just remove that. And then do a completely different chord progression for the bridge. And go back to the verse. I say la 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 la. I say da 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 now. That's my bridge, yo. That's my bridge, you hear? Okay, you get it? That's the idea. You can just change a lot of stuff. And then I have another track free where I could do, you know, the vocals on. I really enjoy working with memory slots. I hope you will too. If you make some songs where you use this concept and you upload it somewhere, let me know about it. I want to see what you do with that. I just really hope that this was helpful for you, that you now get to do more stuff, that you can use all the power of the RC-505. And yeah, then you go make your backup. And I'll see you in the next video. Live looping really is just so much fun. And the more you know about your looper, the more fun it is. So I'll leave you with that. See you in the next tutorial. Yeah, 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 yeah. Click there, and then click also there. Click there, and then click also there. Click there, and then click also yeah. Click there, and then click also yeah.